Everybody always says, get the M140i. It's cheaper, it's flashy, it's loved. But I'm telling you right now, I would choose the M240i every single time. Same engine, but completely different soul. Let me prove it. A few quick facts before the keyboard warriors start. Both cars run BMW's inline-6, the B58. This is common for most of the 40i variants. Same kind of stock power figures as well. But specifications, they're the table. How the car feels is the actual meal itself. And that's where the M240i changes the recipe completely. Now, this isn't going to be your standard M140i versus M240i video. I'm showing you guys why the M240i is better and why I chose it. First thing you notice, the 240i is a coupe and the M140i is a hatch. Now, this may not seem like much apart from differences to how you look at them with your eyes. However, it plays a very, very big part. The body style changes everything. Aero, how the car handles at speeds, everything. Now, if cars had personality, the M140i is basically your loud mate, and the M240i is the guy who actually owns a suit. What I'm trying to say by that is if you look at the UK car scene, you'll see modified M140is everywhere. They're notoriously crashed, and they're owned by people who drive like idiots. However, the M240i has a little bit more class. Now, stock for stock, both cars are pretty similar power figure-wise, and that applies for most of the 40i variants, with the power figures being in the mid-300s. Now, we all know the B58 is a very, very tunable platform, and the B58 is in both cars. But like I've said, it's all good having the power, and it's very easy to reach power on a B58, but it's how that power is applied when you're driving it. And that's where the coupe setup feels more composed when you're actually pushing the car. So now let's talk about the chassis and the actual driving experience of both cars combined. The 1 and 2 series, they're very similar. They have a very, very similar wheelbase, and a lot of the dimensions are basically the same. But the coupe's factory layout give it that upper advantage when pushing the car hard. Now, if you go on the forums, you'll see consistently that people comment that the 240 doesn't need a lot, whereas the M140i needs a lot of stuff, underbody bracing being one of them. And yes, underbody bracing upgrades can be found for both cars. However, the coupe comes out of the factory just feeling a little bit more done than the M140i. Now, here's a key point. Numbers don't show confidence. The actual chassis itself does. And the M240i starts with that. Now, on a daily drive, the coupe is surprisingly civil. Quieter cabin noise, more dampening options if your car comes with that from factory. It's easier to live with and drive fast, which matters if you actually use it. Even simple things like seating positions and the view make the coupe feel right for me. And this is one reason I didn't spec my car with electric seats. You can just fall back. Now, practicality, yes, the M140i wins in that department. The boot space on the coupe is not ideal. But I didn't buy this car to move sofas. If I wanted to do that, I'd hire a van. I bought the car purely for the coupe factor. But if you're buying the car purely because it has a couple more litres of room in the boot compared to the actual driving feel and experience itself, that's not really what I'm after. Plus, the only stuff that ever goes in here is my fire extinguisher and shopping. And I very rarely fill the entire boot with shopping. Now, if you're from the UK like me, you would have no doubt seen a categoried M140i for sale somewhere. And one of the biggest factors of one of the reasons those cars are written off so much is the handling aspect of them. The M140i is a stupidly fast car. However, it can't really handle that power from factory that well out of the box. And I would say, go and look it up, go and do your own research. I guarantee you'll find more written off M140is than you do the M240i. The M240i is just a less crash platform purely because it can handle that power better from a factory level. Oh, and by the way, I know the car's stinking, but this car's not stock, as you can see in there. This M240i has had a lot of work carried out on it. Full braking upgrades as well as the full suspension, all completely revamped. And my M240i does have EDC, which is electronic damper control. And lastly, this is one thing that matters a lot when buying a car to me. The sound. And for me, I only ever see two type of M140i owners. I see the really old man who has a completely stock Shadow Edition, completely unmolested. And then the other M140is are owned by people like this on the screen right now. Look at these videos. And by the way, 90% of the time, I always see the ones in those clips. I personally feel that the coupe, it has a much better tone. It doesn't scream as much. You don't see a lot of them with these Asbo exhaust setups. It's got a deep tone, which to me suits the chassis massively. And to me, when I have some fun with this car and I start opening it up a little bit, I don't feel like a complete idiot driving around compared to having an M140i that sets off gunshot noises. Now I know what a lot of you might be thinking. How can you make such a controversial video when you've only owned 2 Series and coupes? Well, I've driven both cars and I've had the opportunity to drive a modified M140i and also own my M240i. Now, if you guys have followed the channel for a while, you'll know that I didn't used to have an M240i. This badge used to say M235i. I had an N55, one of the best sounding engines I've ever had. However, one of my very good mates, Jay, he has an M140i, or he did. He has an M car now. I had the opportunity to do a few modifications on that car and help him with it. We tuned it with MHD, we fitted a sports cat, we did a lot to it. And one Jay would come down, would fit the modifications, and then I'd have the opportunity and the benefit to actually drive the car and test it out. And here's one thing that I'll say. I almost crashed his car. It is so hard to control with the factory suspension stuff. I can see why so many people crash the M140is. But then you hop into something like this with a lower centre of gravity, you just feel like you can definitely push it at higher speeds a lot more. And here's the other debatable thing. Oh, you got an M240i because you couldn't afford an M140i. Well, believe it or not, these cars are very, very similar in price. Age for age, spec for spec. All depends on what you're after. However, they're very similar, and in some cases, the M140i's are a little bit cheaper. And a little bit of advice for anybody out there. If you're looking at a car, and it is a category car, and it's been crashed, and it's been repaired to a high standard, never buy it, because the car will never drive like it was meant to from factory. M140i's handle awfully from factory anyway, let alone a crash damaged repaired one. If you guys own any of these cars, let me know your experience. Which is your favourite? I'd love to hear the debate in the comment section. And if you want to see a load more BMW content, more on the M240i and the B58 platform, then hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, more people can see it that way. Any questions you have, leave them in the comment section. Apart from that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.